In Argentina, the 7th Summit of Heads of States and Government of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, is minutes away to begin. In Peru, the political crisis marked by the brutal repression of civilian protests continues. The death toll rose to 62. In France, craftsmen and traders guilds rallied against the increase in power and raw material prices. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The 7th Summit of Heads of States and Government of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, is minutes away to begin in Argentina with the promotion of an integrationist agenda and regional unity. The forum takes place at the Sheraton Buenos Aires Hotel and will be headed by the Argentinian head of state Alberto Fernandez in his role as head of the regional mechanism. The event is attended for the first time by the presidents and representatives of the 33 nations that make up the forum and will be marked by the return of Brazil to the bloc. On the eve of the paramount event, Argentina and Brazil ratified their commitment to strengthen regional integration and democracy.
If there is something we have in common with President Lula, is our vision of the need to integrate Latin America. We have also talked first about the integration of our countries. Then we have talked about strengthening Mercosur and making it more efficient and enhancing it. We have also talked about starting up UNASUR again, and we have resolved to take advantage of tomorrow's meeting to listen to all the leaders of the continent at the CELAC meeting, always with the purpose of favoring the integration of the region.
In this sense, Brazilian President Lula Silva mentioned the solidarity Argentina's leader has shown him and his country during the past years.
Today is a day of celebration between Brazil and Argentina. I will never forget the gesture made by Comrade Alberto Martinez when I was detained. I will never forget the solidarity of the Argentinian people.
The people of Venezuela mobilized on Monday in the face of the Bolivarian Revolution and in commemoration of the 65th anniversary of the civic military victory against the dictatorship of Marco Pérez Jiménez in 1958. Women and men took to the streets of Venezuela to show their support for President Nicolás Maduro to reject the blockade and the unilateral coercive measures imposed on the country in the last 7 years by the United States and its allies. According to the mayor of Caracas, Carmen Melendez, there are 24 simultaneous marches taking place all over the country. For his part, the Vice President of Mobilizations and Events of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Nahum Fernandez, called on the population to continue promoting the legacy of Commander Hugo Chavez, hand in hand with President Nicolás Maduro. We now go live to Argentina. The 7th Summit of Heads of States and Government of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States is underway.
Poses so many problems to the locals. So as president of CELAC, my first visit was to Barbados. And I had a chance to talk to Mia, who told me about what the Caribbean was actually needing. And we also had a Zoom meeting with other representatives of Caribbean countries, and I was really worried and made a point of the Caribbean being represented by someone who is president of the southernmost country in the world alongside Chile. And I think we have brought the world's attention to this, and I think we have also taken a step forward because, along with Mexico, we have created a support fund to provide assistance to the Caribbean in order for it to deal with the problems arising out of climate change. And then there's the region's problems, which we are all very well aware of. We live in the most unequal continent in the world, and once and for all, we must undertake a process leading to equality and social justice in our nations. And for that, we need to work in unity, because it's much easier to achieve such results working together in a world in which globalization is a fact. And that's much better than continuing to do things going our own separate ways. And I made a point to demand that our nations be heard. And I took the voice of Latin America to the international summits, also calling for the end of the blockade that Latin American countries still suffer. Blockades and embargoes are very perverse methods that sanction not governments, but the people of countries. So we can't continue to allow that to happen. Cuba has suffered a blockade of over 6 days, which is unforgivable. And something similar goes for Venezuela. We must raise a voice. And what we must also do is work to ensure and strengthen the institutionality of our region. We believe in democracy. And democracy is certainly at risk. After the pandemic, we have seen how far-right sectors have risen and are threatening each and every one of our peoples. And what we shouldn't allow is for that extreme right wing with fascist leanings. We mustn't allow it to endanger the institutions of our peoples. We've seen this again and again. We saw it in the case of the military coup in Bolivia, which thankfully only lasted for a year. And there was then an election that led Arce to become president again. We saw it only a few days ago when madness broke loose on the streets of Brasilia, just a week into President Lula's fresh administration. And our people suffer this systematically, even in Argentina, when someone tried to murder our vice president. And this is something we must not allow. This is something that we must not allow. So we need to work in unity and be firm in defending democracy and institutions. This is something that Latin America owes itself, and it's something that Latin America couldn't possibly overlook. I believe a new opportunity is opening up for us. We now have a full CELAC with Brazil back on board, and we have the opportunity to unite the region, which is an imperative for us. And this is something we need to achieve. The world has gone through changes after the pandemic. Globalization has been working differently. And globalization has also laid bare the flaws in the economic system, its shortages. When you see that 10 people in the world have as much as 40% of humanity, you see how unfair the world is. If you look at the way vaccines were distributed during the pandemic, and you see that 90% of the vaccines went to 10% of the central countries, which account for 10% of humanity, that also made us realize how unfair the world was. Now, we have all of the possibilities for growing together. We have all of the opportunities to grow united. All we need to do is enhance our dialogue. We need to respect each other in diversity. All those of us here have been elected by their peoples, and their populations legitimize them as their officials in government. And aside from the individual elections of countries, we must respect each other in diversity, and we must grow together in diversity. I believe we have a huge opportunity ahead of us. I certainly think, and by the way, yesterday with dear President Lula, we were able to advance discussions regarding the bilateral relationship between Argentina and Brazil. And just like we did, we must do the same with all of the continent. That is an effort that we must undertake on the understanding that it's certainly worthwhile, as it has to do with the progress of our peoples. And we can't delay things any further. We must turn all of these wishes and words into institutions and facts, actions. We must ensure that integration is a reality. We must make sure that integration boils down to action that will allow us to make progress, to advance. I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here today, joining us. I am assured that this year I was able to put Latin America within the place in the concert of nations that Latin America deserves. And I also have peace of mind in terms of having told the North that while rockets fly across in the North, in Latin America, hunger worsens. And I'm also confident that I was able to demand at all fora that war ends and ceases to condemn Latin America to hunger. I am also able to say that I have peace of mind in having promoted the contact group, which Mexico is also part of, and the president of Colombia and the president of France. We managed to call Venezuela back to dialogue, trying to ensure that democratic coexistence in Venezuela is a reality. So I have peace of mind as a result of having that, and as a result of having helped bring vaccines to the people in Latin America that needed them. And with that peace of mind, I welcome you today. And with that sort of peace of mind, I urge you all, I urge us all to understand that alone, we're not worth much. But if we are united, we can have immense strength. And the time has now come to make the Caribbean and Latin America one single region defending the same interests for the sake of the progress of our peoples. Thank you very much.
Ahora debo dar un golpe con este martillo.
Now it's time for me to use the gavel and officially open the session. I formally inaugurate the CELAC Summit. Sorry.
We would like to thank the President of Argentina for his words. And next, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Argentina, Mr. Santiago Cafiero, will present the PPT report that describes the actions taken on during 2022.
Presidente.
It is also an honor for me, as the President said, to welcome you to our country on the occasion of this 7th meeting of CELAC. Our community maintains that integration is a key value to build a zone of peace, a territory with opportunities for development based on solidarity across Latin America and the Caribbean. This is why the work plan we put together as Presidency pro tempore included 5 pillars, 5 thematic pillars, and over 70 innovative activities, all of which were agreed on the basis of consensus among members, and we made progress on that basis in the working groups. And the 5 pillars I will be describing are the ones that guided Argentina's Presidency pro tempore in 2022. First, post-pandemic social, economic, and productive recovery in order to promote the reconstruction of the region with an inclusive approach in solidarity. As Presidency pro tempore, we promoted activities and discussions regarding the health, labor, and social policies with a view to surveying and organizing national capacities in the countries to improve responses to the challenges in those areas. We would also like to highlight the progress in the implementation of the health self-sufficiency plan we carried out within CELAC. Secondly, the science, technology, and innovation at the service of development and inclusion. In this regard, we acted on the understanding that only through more science, technology, and innovation will the region be able to develop in a balanced and inclusive fashion. And in this vein, we promoted actions to coordinate regional public policies on science, technology, and innovation in order to start outlining the foundations for scientific and technological cooperation to foster and boost the innovation and integration process in the region, while at the same time defining academic mobility strategies to strengthen professional exchanges. Thirdly, environmental and disaster risk management cooperation. With this goal, right from the outset of our presidency pro tempore of CELAC, we decided to raise the visibility of the consequences of climate change and the particular effects this has on the Caribbean states, while at the same time strengthening the regional position with regard to negotiations on climate change in order to foster comprehensive and sustainable development in the region within the context of a just transition. As the President rightly pointed out, along with ICLEC, we managed to operationalize the Fund for Climate Adaptation and Response to Natural Disasters. Fourth, there's culture and education for our people. In 2022, we carried out many activities to foster integration in a region, ensuring the universalization of access by young girls and women and adolescents to the educational system, working towards digital education, also making headway in preparing youth around the world to engage with new technologies and knowledge-based services. The empowerment of women and gender issues became our fifth work pillar. In this regard, we mainstreamed this into all of our activities in connection with access by women to the labor market, based on diversity and above all things on recognizing care work in order to close the structural gaps and asymmetries and thereby achieve gender equity. All of these activities were carried out on the basis of cooperation among several regional and multilateral organizations. I would like to particularly highlight ECLEC, CAF, and CELA, and OECS, CARICOM, ICAM, and FAO, as well as the OEI. We also fostered the inter-regional agenda, working with China and ASEAN, exploring the CELAC African Union mechanism, going back to the CELAC India mechanism. And after 4 years of silence in bilateral relations, we also revitalized the CELAC EU mechanism by advancing a work agenda agreed upon last year, and which is being pursued this year with a view to a meeting towards the middle of the year. None of this could have been done without the cooperation and invaluable work of all of the work teams. And here I would like to especially recognize the work of the Foreign Ministry of Argentina. In order to conclude the work of 22, we will adopt the Declaration of Buenos Aires, which reflects 100 points of consensus in addition to 11 special declarations, all of them adopted by consensus. And this is the result of dialogue and respect. This is multilateralism in solidarity in its most quintessential form. This is what we've pursued and practiced. It's about overcoming the culture of hatred, the throwaway culture. It's about allowing the culture of togetherness to prevail instead. A warm welcome to all of you.
We're watching the live opening the speech of the 7th Summit of Heads of States and Government of CELAC. Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez highlighted the work done to support each other in the region in face of different challenges. The Argentinian head of state also pointed out the difficulties the region faces as poverty and inequalities, but emphasized that the best way to tackle said difficulties is united. President Fernandez also denounced and condemned the blockades and unilateral coercive measures imposed on some of the region's nations, like Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. The Argentinian president said he believed that the region, united, can turn words into facts, adding that integration must be achieved for the benefit of all. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media for more information on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.